Again, thank you guys for joining us tonight for the Wyncote Audubon Society's monthly program. Tonight we have Winter Birding with Ruth Pfeffer. Ruth Pfeffer, owner of Birding with Ruth, is an enthusiastic and knowledgeable birder whose accomplishments are varied and interesting. She first became interested in birds as a Girl Scout leader and has studied at the Schuylkill Environmental Education Center, where she became a birding instructor. While involved with the Girl Scouts, she worked on many environmental issues and participated in the very first Earth Day. She also served on the Development Task Force, which was responsible for the first solar building in the Philadelphia area at the Shelley Ridge Girl Scout Program Center. Built the birding program at Morris Arboretum, where she's also an instructor. She began leading day trips to places like Bombay Hook, Hawk Mountain, and other locations in the area. She also leads one-day bus trips for groups to Conewago Dam, Bombay Hook, Hawk Mountain, and many other places in the area. She has also led trips to Costa Rica, Trinidad, Tobago, Belize, Galapagos Islands, and many other places. She even takes extended trips to Maine, Texas, Arizona, and Florida. So as you can see, she's been all over. She's been a member of so many organizations and done so many good things, including the Delaware Valley Ornithological Club, the Academy of Natural Sciences, and even where I work at the Pennypack Trust. She's an active member of all the local places. You can't go anywhere in Philadelphia and not know the name Ruth Pfeffer. And what led us to her program tonight, she began photography of the natural world and has produced calendars featuring her photos. 3 of her photos were chosen by the Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge and are printed in Bombay Hook's brochure. Her photos even appear on the Gwinnett Preserve brochure and the cover of the Eastern Shore Bird List. Her photography from travels form the basis of her slideshow presentations, but they're not like any presentation you've seen before, and you'll see that tonight. So Ruth gives many presentations covering over 25 places and topics of natural interest and leads discussions for groups of all ages. She's even helped me lead bird walks at the Trust, and inevitably she takes them over because of her passion for this. It's truly incredible. So Ruth doesn't need an introduction to many people, but I needed to say some nice things about her. I could go on and on, but now please join me for Ruth and this adventure of inland and coastal winter birding hotspots. Ruth, all yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much, everyone. Well, without further ado, I'm going to mention lots of places tonight and take you to a lot of places. So you might want a pencil and paper if you are interested. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Got it? Kevin, what happened? Wait a minute. All right, Kev, what's up?
I'm looking at your Zoom screen.
Wait a minute. Yep. Oh, a message came up. All right. New share. New share. Yep. Got it.
And is your presentation still open?
Oh, there we go. Without further ado, everyone. Hi again and a big welcome. Well, it's hard to leave home and go on so many trips, but it's wonderful when you have birds coming to your backyard. And the cardinal, of course, is one of the beauties that you see. No matter where I go in the world, I know I'm coming home to my cardinal. And there it is, icy ground, the snow. Oh, brown thrasher spent the winter with me about 6 years ago. It arrived November 28th and stayed till about March 3rd. Very, very aggressive behavior. Of course, very unusual for a thrasher to stay around in this area. Pine siskins come every year for the last 3 years, which is a real treat. And I don't usually show a raptor dining on a bird. However, it was a European starling, so that's all right, a Cooper's hawk. And one morning I came down and that's it. European starlings, of course, is a native species, and we just really they are plentiful in the United States. Well, I needed to mention the puffin because the puffin is responsible for starting all my travels. I heard Dr. Steve Press give a talk at Schuylkill Center many, many years ago. And I said to my husband, I have to go see a puffin. And we went up to Maine that year, and I haven't stopped traveling along the coast since then. And that was a very long time ago. About 5 years ago, maybe 4 years, I lost a year with the pandemic here. My son and I signed up to do the Puffin trip, and Dr. Kress only does one trip a year. And when, he was on the trip that we were. There's the Puffin. It's also cute, called the sea parrot, and it's got 3 little fish in its bill, really. And I learned to eat lobster by going to Maine, and I had the pleasure of being with Dr. Kress the whole trip. And boy, did we see a lot of things. And what a really wonderful man. And his Atlantic Puffin project is wonderful, and he's helped other countries to bring their pelagic birds back also. Well, without further ado, Barnegat Light. Well, one morning, Lee, Altadonna, and Carol, and Janet and I headed out for Barnegat. Janet Starwood is that little shadow to the left of Lee. She walked into the mist, and it wasn't brutally cold, but we could not really see the sea. We had to be very careful walking on this seawall at Barnegat. Of course, it's a very special place to go, and a real hot spot in the wintertime especially. And that's what the sea looked like in the mist. And then by the time we were almost at the end, the mist cleared, and this loon, it was the closest I was ever to a loon. In fact, he seemed surprised that I came out of the mist, and so did he. And just a striking bird. And the only time I ever saw a loon do this with its wings, I don't know if it was because of the mist, and I've seen lots of loons, but it didn't take off. It just flapped and flapped the wings, and then tucked them down and looked at me again. Red-throated loons started to pop up. And as we got to the end, a whole little flock of sanderlings, and you can see how clear the mist is gone now. And they're very, very close to the surf, whereas the long-tailed ducks. And I did not know that the long-tail, when I took this photo, it has one of those little sand crabs. You ever sit on the edge of the surf and dig for the sand crabs? That's what it has in its bill. And we really had a magical morning there. And that's a long-tailed duck, female, in winter plumage. And of course, the real treat, they're the Harlequin Ducks. And, really a treat. And the surf scoter. Look at that bill. That's really amazing. Now, mind you, they're usually out, but because of the mist, they were up close and personal that day. Purple sandpipers were on the rocks. It's one of the darkest shorebirds we have, two-tone bill, and they come down from the north during the winter, and you can find them around the rocks and the seawalls. Well, Tinicum, and I go way back with Tinicum because I learned a lot of my birds in the earlier days at Tinicum. And Janet was invited, and I joined her. That's Lisa Thomas Laurie. And of course, it's a big day because that first bald eagle, that is not a very impressive eagle's nest, I will say. I have seen larger ones. I have one in the show tonight. But there's the symbol of our country, the bald eagle, and it's nice for it to be within the city limits of Philadelphia. It was a very big deal. Bald eagles are in all the surrounding counties by now, and more than one nest in each of the counties. But welcome back, bald eagle. Never thought that would happen 30 years ago. That's an immature bald eagle. And you can see them very frequently in our area now. Tinicum is home in the wintertime to lots of ducks. This is gadwall, cinnamon, green-winged teal, and a horned grebe. And you'll see when I'm showing you, I bird all winter. I start November to March. So you're going to see different plumages. This is the horned grebe, almost in March when it comes. Well, Middle Creek definitely is an inland place to go. March 1st to March 5th, I always went for a good number of years. But now, February, the snow geese start to show up in February by the thousands. And if you've never been there, it's really worth the treat. There are lots of other species. The tundra swan come in numbers also. American tree sparrow, and other woodland birds and field birds you can see there. It really is a wonderful place to go. Well, moving right along to Brigantine. So is that. Brigantine and Bombay Hook are two of my favorite places. That's a peregrine falcon on one of an osprey platform. And you can see the peregrine there frequently. And I was lucky enough at Brigantine, there were 3 snowy owls, and I got to see all 3 of them when I went down. And this is one of them, and just what a beautiful bird. And hopefully they'll come down again this year. It's definitely cold enough for them. We invite them. Northern Harrier flying over the marshes. And Bombay is a beautiful, beautiful marsh. And for anybody in the birding world, it's one of our favorite places. I love May. I go there many times, but it's great in the winter time. But to see the snow geese come in and calling continuously and land in any field, any marsh is really a treat. I call it my snow goose fix for the year. And it is definitely an adventure. Pintail duck females. The female ducks are hard to ID, but the pintail has that brownish head, and they are easily identified because of that resting. There's the male and a female with it. Dunlin are there by the thousands, either at Brigantine and Bombay Hook. That's their winter plumage. Avocets are in their winter plumage. And then in March, they'll start, there were like 300 to 400 at Bombay Hook on this one particular day. And you can see some of them are in their winter and some of them are in their breeding plumage. It's a wonderful time to go there also. There's the avocet, and they swing their bill back and forth. They eat flies and different midges, little things like that, little things that we can't see, but they must be plentiful at Bombay Hook because there's avocets there in the winter. And as I said, in March, golden eagle, I've seen at both places, Brigantine and Bombay Hook on occasion. And always check the fields on your way in because horned larks come down in the winter, and they have a very interesting call. And even if you don't see them right away, roll your windows down in the fields going into Bombay Hook and just listen for a little bit. They have a 2-note and a 3-note call that you can really hear very clearly in the winter time. Eastern bluebirds. The farther south you go, the more eastern bluebirds you do see. But I wanted to share this with you. The first time I saw this behavior was at Pennypack Ecological Trust a number of years ago. And there were about 24 eastern bluebirds. And I didn't know the first time what was happening that I saw it. And I didn't find any written material about it. But after the second time, I noticed that because the bluebirds are a cavity dweller and cavity nester, I should say. And the older birds were taking the younger birds in and out to show them the cavity. And I've seen that behavior 4 times. This is this box there is at Mars Arboretum I saw it the last time. Cape May, very special place to go. People come from all over the world to go to Cape May. It's along the coast. It's one of the most, it's a famous place. If you bird at Higbee's, you can meet on, let's say, in the spring or in the winter, you can meet people from 5, 6 different countries that are right around you. There's one of my groups at Cape May Lighthouse. And here's another group, some familiar faces. There's Lee and Janet and the Wunderlichs visiting from the Bahamas. And whenever the Wunderlichs come in, groups get together and go birding. And there's Martin Seltzer. All right. And we did Stone Harbor and Cape May that day. And of course, we do think of Cape May as the hawks, that red shoulder and a Cooper's hawk immature. But there's lots of ducks there in the winter. In fact, this picture I took that day, and that had to be, it was a long time ago that day. Hooded mergansers. They are just beautiful, beautiful birds. Hooded mergansers and common mergansers are the 2 mergansers that nest in Pennsylvania, by the way. Well, again, I'm out there on the march, and this is the Delaware Bay. You can't see as much of this ship. This is an older picture, but I was treated. I just had to get out of the house and do some birding. And I think it was like March 4th. And there were hundreds of gannets going right past the sunken ship, the USS Atlantis from the First World War, I should say. And they were just hundreds and hundreds of gannets, all right, just going in front of me. I really, really was treated. And in this photos, two of the loons, they are red-throated loons. I've never to this day seen as many red-throated loons. In fact, I stopped counting. There were so many. They were all over. There were more red-throated loons than there were common loons. They were all around the sunken ship, by the way. On another time I was there, and common scoters by the hundreds were flying past me. In fact, I was on one of those benches. That's where I was birding, sat down, and there were just hundreds of common scoters, and there were some surf mixed in with them. Well, auk, it used to be called Razorbill auk, then the auk, but I have one windcoat memory from this. Dale Twining and Jeanette Twining. Dale was president of Windcoat many years ago, and they had a van and they transported us on these trips. And we went down to Manasquan, and Dale and Martin and myself got out of the van. It was so brutally cold, and we were walking along the seawall down there because Dale had heard that there was an auk, a razorbill auk at the end of it. And I remember saying to myself, what am I doing here? It is so cold. And I said to myself, in my mind, of course, I am here because I love doing it. And so that's another windcoat loon. By the way, the auk wasn't there, but it was a few years ago, and it hung around. I got to visit it 4 times. Well, Conowingo Dam is another place inland. You put it on your list of must to do in December or January. And bald eagles. And if you want to hear an eagle talk eagle, you go to Conowingo Dam and you're quiet, even if some of the turbines are running. Be quiet, because the male and female will sit beside the juveniles and they will speak eagle. All right. And then the juveniles will repeat it. It really, really is something. And sometimes you can hear more than 1 or 2 birds doing it, but it's a treat. And another bald eagle, I showed that already. The bald eagles teach their young actually how to steal fish from each other, and then they become proficient at stealing fish from other raptors. I've seen a few do that down at Cape May and some other places. This is a really young bird with and the adult has the fish, and the young one's coming in for it. This particular day, we had 135 bald eagles. In fact, we participated in the bird club was taken, the Hartford Bird Club was taken account. And if I expanded this picture, there were 21 bald eagles in that one spot. Brown creeper, woodland birds are also there along the nature trail. A red-headed woodpecker. I saw my very first red-headed woodpecker on a windcoat trip. I think that's a beech nut, which has always been their favorite food. And I've read, back to the 1800s, the ornithologists wrote the beech nut, but something's happened, and I believe it has to do with climate change. About 5 years ago, red-headed woodpeckers by the numbers showed up at Crow's Nest out in Chester County. We counted at least 35. I know the first day I went, I had 13 of them myself. Imagine that, 13. But look what they were storing. They had caches, and they were storing these big hickory nuts. And it was really, really interesting. And I participated in the count, in fact, of doing it. And as I said, we counted at least 35 in a very small area. It was an interesting bird to see. And of course, I had never seen that many, so I got there as frequently as I could. Well, one of the things that's happened to me in the last 10 years is an increase to get out on the water more, not just for the pelagic birds, but learn more about what's happening to our oceans, bays, and rivers as far as climate change is concerned, because you can see it along the coast and many, many other signs all up and down the coast. So I have gone out on whale watches. this eider duck, the male, he definitely displayed and displayed for so long. Notice that not one of the females are looking at him. He actually got tired and put the wings down. And this is what I'm saying before we go out on our whale watch. And by the way, the whale watch I go out with is only researchers. I almost fell off the side of the boat when these two whales, they were not in view, and all of a sudden they came up. I am so close that there was a third one, but with my 500 lens, it didn't get it in there. And you can see the fringes. They are humpback whales, and there's the fringes. They don't have the teeth, but look what the birds did. The birds were everywhere. Sooty shearwaters, greater shearwaters, all kinds of gulls. And what they were doing is they were pecking, in between the fringes of the whale's mouth, pecking for excess flesh from the fish that they were eating. Was absolutely amazing to see. And that is a sooty shearwater coming in. I'm glad I don't have to retrieve my food like that. Let me tell you, that water was cold, and when it came down, but it was wonderful to see. It's a greater shearwater, and there's a sooty shearwater. There were hundreds of them. It was definitely a treat. Flying right next to the boat also. Then all of a sudden, one of the whales put up its pectoral fin, and mainly this is to get rid of mites, by the way. And they pound it, and that pectoral fin weighs a lot. It really does. This was about a 30-foot humpback whale. And you can see the bird. I like that picture of the tail, the bird in between the splash of the tail. Seals, harbor seals were out there. And then 4 years ago, no, 3 years ago, I noticed at Chatham and up in Cape Cod, gray seals by the hundreds of them, and they call at night. They're coming in for food. And that's why now we have a predator, the great white shark. There's a great white shark conservancy up in Chatham, Massachusetts, that leads shark excursions in September. All right. And my son really has always been fascinated by sharks, and I wanted to learn more. So we went out with the researchers from the Atlantic Great White Shark Conservancy. And it's you want to do something different. It was really something. It was quite a day. I remember it it's an 8-hour trip, a plane. There's a driver of the plane. His name happened to be Dwayne, and he would spot the sharks. The sharks were deep, so I didn't get any of the photos of the shark, but we had 5 sharks that we spotted. All of them have been banded and little transmitters on them, and every one of them were near beaches. And there were people on every beach walking or fishing and everything. Well, the captain called us and said, heads up, look carefully. A fin whale, which is 70 feet, it's the second largest mammal in the world, came right along the side of the boat. Look at the tiny little fin that had 70 feet long. And that was also a very special moment. And sunfish. And the captain said this has to do with the waters being warmer. We had 15 of them that day. He said years ago, if you had one of them, that would have been a lot. And as we had 15, another one of the signs of climate change with the warmer water. And this is a spout of the huge, this was the largest humpback I ever saw. It had to be 40 feet. And this, I couldn't even get the whole thing in as it came alongside of the boat. And look at the size of the tail. It was absolutely huge. And we had 25 whales that surrounded the boat on one particular day. And we saw 35 of the humpback whales and other whales. And mainly I'm interested because when I'm traveling, I've had whales at Island Beach State Park. I've had whales off Virginia Beach. When I'm traveling, I'm seeing more humpback whales than I did before in the winter. It's a white-sided dolphin. All right, off to Chincoteague. Chincoteague. There's a lot of history about Chincoteague, and another one of my favorite places. We've all heard of the Chincoteague Ponies. And it's an interesting story how the ponies got there, because originally individuals that lived on the mainland, Chincoteague, moved over to where the lighthouse is on Chincoteague Island to avoid paying taxes on their grasslands. So that's how the ponies originally got there. And Mustang ponies were brought in from the west because the whole herd were being by the salt marsh grasses. They were getting sick, so that worked. And there's the Mustang influence. Sika elks are the smallest elk in the world, and they were brought there. A gentleman brought them there that he would have a petting zoo. All right, but they soon took over their numbers higher than the white-tailed deer. So now there's a culling project going on to lower the species of the Sika elk. And Chincoteague, yes, does get snow in the winter time, and their long-tailed ducks will be close to the surf when they're there. A great blue heron making the best out of being in the snow, along with a belted kingfisher. I was just there at Chincoteague actually December 29th and December 29th of this year. And there were, at least 24 marble godwits and a handful of the black skimmers yet, and lots of oyster catchers on the barge. And snow goose came in while my son and I were there, which was a really treat. I put this in the little horseshoe crab and the shell. That's a calico crab next to it. But Chincoteague's one place in November or December that a lot of the molded shells will float up because of the molting of the horseshoe crab. You can see them as far as your eyes can see on the beach. There can be plentiful. White ibis now used to travel down south, and you just have to go to P Island to get this white ibis. Now they're breeding along the East Coast further north. I'm not sure. I would suspect it's to do with climate change. And they're there by the hundreds now, the ibis, and you can see young ones also. Just a beautiful picture of the impoundment. I'm going to mention ducks because there's lots of ducks, and you can see all of these ducks at Bombay Hook and Brigantine and other wildlife refuges along the coast. So here's our buffleheads, and I love that picture, the male bufflehead, because you can see that purplish blue turquoisey color that you don't always get the best light for that. And our shoveler. The bufflehead's a diver, by the way. Our shoveler, northern shoveler, is a puddle duck, also called daddler. There's the female. There's the pintail, male and female. And there's a blue-winged teal just resting. And you often see ducks. That's a puddle duck, a daddler also. Then the divers, ruddy ducks. And again, you see them at different times of the year. So here's one plumage, and then here's another plumage. You can tell that this one is an early March because it's getting in its breeding. It's also called stiff tail, by the way, and it's a cute little duck. And the teal, the green-winged teal and the blue-winged teal are also small ducks. Common goldeneye, beautiful. You can see this at Peace Valley, Green Lane, all right, which are two of my favorite places. I've been to both of them so far in December. And here's the male common goldeneye. And as I said, along the coast in different inlets or the ocean. Ringneck ducks, just a real beauty. And there's our greater scaup, not to be confused with the lesser scaup. I have that in the show. There's canvasbacks. Any birder gets thrilled when you just see a canvasback. They're just so amazing looking. And red-breasted mergansers, male and female. She's up on the beach. She was doing a lot of preening. I don't know if she didn't have any oil or anything, but something was bothering her. And our common mergansers. This is the other one that the mergansers that nest in Pennsylvania. And let's talk about grebes. In the winter time, here's the horn grebe. And I wanted to mention Shark River. All right. Put Shark River to Manasquan, including Old Sam's Pond, which is in Point Pleasant, and all the way up to Sandy Hook is wonderful birding experience in the winter time. And this is I took this photo at Shark River Inlet. And this is the bird further on in the beginning of March, but it's the same bird. Let me go back. There's the horned grebe in the winter plumage, and it's no wonder some of us get confused while we're watching birds. And there's a redneck, Peace Valley, redneck grebe. And any of these can be seen in the places that I just mentioned to you. All right. On Chincoteague, this one particular night, there was a 360-degree. Anywhere you turned, you saw the sunset. It was extraordinary at Chincoteague. And that's a sunset. I love sunsets at Chincoteague there. Well, off to Virginia Beach. In the last 6 years, this has been my new playground in the wintertime. I've been there 3 years of the last 6 years. You're looking at Cape Charles Lighthouse, what George Washington requested it, and Alexander Hamilton signed the check for it, 1792. It's the very first money, public federated money, public works that was spent by the taxpayers of the United States. And that's why that lighthouse is still there. It's made out of sandstone, by the way. All right. And it's still standing. You can go inside, and it's open 7 days a week. It's on Smith Island. All right. But I want to show you what's next to it. This replaced that original Cape Charles lighthouse. And this was done in the 1800s. I think 1881, and it was forged in Philadelphia, which is one of the reasons I wanted to go to Fort Story. And it's in 2 parts, and it is the second tallest lighthouse in the United States. Cape Hatteras, of course, Bodie Light being the tallest. And it is a wonderful place to bird and to be. It's called First Landing State Park. And that's where the first settlers became the ones that went to Jamestown. They landed in Provincetown, Cape Cod, and then they landed in Cape Charles at Fort Landing State Park. And it's one of my favorite places. Down here, there's also Back Bay National Wildlife Refuge. And you have the bay, and of course you have the ocean. Hydebill Grebe just sailing through on a magnificent sunset, and snow buntings. What a treat I had that day. You don't always get them, you hear them reported, but there they are. And this is First Landing State Park. When I'm in Virginia Beach, I go there every day. It just is a phenomenal birding. It's a feel-good place. There are fields, there are wetlands, there are open areas, there's woods. You have, the deciduous trees, but you have a lot of the pines too, and some live oaks. And I highly recommend it. Palm warbler and winter plumage. This is a very young bald eagle, and it had flown in, and it had something caught in its crop. So it just looked down at me, and I looked down at him. I was very, very quiet until we really spent like 15 minutes together. Then it flew off. But you can see flocks of cedar waxwings, brown-headed nuthatches by the numbers. Now moving on to Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island during Christmas, I've been there many times during Christmas week in the last 10 years, four of the years. And they have the Festival of Lights in one area. And that is a very impressive eagle's nest. Well, on Jekyll Island, the whole island is a state park. The whole island, and there's many places to go birding. I am on the nature trail that's out of very close to the historic region, and the eagles made it larger this year. I talked to one of the naturalists there, and I think it's because it's right next to the water because of the wind, but that really is impressive. And it was they raised 2 eaglets, by the way. Pileated. These are all the birds walking down this one little nature trail, which isn't that long. Pileated woodpecker, a black racer, poked its head out of the grasses there. Pine warbler in a pine tree. Osprey joined in. And then we went to the amphitheater area, they call it, but the amphitheater is not used anymore. And it was a picnic of the roseate spoonbills, and I wasn't expecting it because I didn't speak to anybody. All I knew was there was a trail But that's what, when you love birding, you love to explore, you just find these places. I love this photo. Black crowned night heron, yellow crowned night herons, all breeding. That's what it looked like across. There were birds everywhere in this cove. And also when I look at this, that is the largest gator. And I've been around, seen a lot of gators. Look at the size of that foot. And you can't even see the head in the end of the 17 feet. All right, and a black vulture. And I saw a young black vulture. And that's the only time I've ever seen a young vulture. And a harvest moon. And keep in mind, this is Christmas week. And we're down in Jekyll Island. The moon came out. Everybody was out and stopping their cars. I only took 40 pictures of it that night. When we got back to our accommodations, it was so beautiful over the water. Just wonderful. And make sure if you go there to visit the Loggerhead Sea Turtle Hospital, they really, everybody on the island is very concerned. They don't even put their lights on, their house lights on at night to protect the sea turtles. Everybody on the island who has property there is very involved in saving them. It's wonderful to see. All right. And there's our lesser squawk. When you're birding, you can see rafts of ducks. My first time at Jekyll Island, I said to my husband, if I had a scope, I could see those birds closer. Well, I just scoped that next Christmas, that's for sure. And I got a little closer to them. Beautiful, beautiful birds, the lesser squawk. And the sunsets along the Outer Banks and Jekyll Island are just either the sunrises or sunsets are beautiful. Let's go to Florida. Well, this tree, we called this Charlie Wunderlich's tree. And I think maybe some of you would remember his name. He was one of the presidents. He was a very dear friend. And of course, my very first mentor. I had 10 mentors. And this, we called this Charlie's tree because every February, he put his tent up right next to that tree. And many of us from Wyncote went down to be with him. And sometimes we stayed 4 or 5, sometimes we stayed a week. And you never knew who you were going to see every year. And it was wonderful to bird with him and to be in the Everglades. There's some more gators, smaller than those other guys I showed you, and the manatees. And if anybody heard the news, the manatees are in trouble, and it has to do with climate change. Their grasses are being choked out by not getting enough sun, and it's the herbicides that's causing it. So researchers are trying to feed them lettuce in different forms, shredded in different ways, to hopefully get them to be able to eat. All right, a yellow-throated warbler. Always remember that being there. It didn't sing, but the yellow-throated warbler and Cape May warblers and Nashville warblers. And last year on the Christmas count, I wasn't home for the count this year. Last year on the Christmas count, I remember speaking to Keith Russell, and he told me that I think 5 Cape May warblers were on the count, and also the same for Nashville. That's another climate change. These warblers are being stuck because of the warmer air, the warmer weather. And what are they going to forage for food? That's the main concern. And Parula warbler, parallel, if you want to say it that way. Wood stork. All right, and that's the ancient sedges, why the Everglades is so special. The ancient sedge, you can actually cut your finger if you touch that. It's called the river of grass for that reason. Armadillo, it's wonderful. And this is great blue heron. It's not a statue catching a ride. And to see the reddish egret do its umbrella feeding, even on a rainy day, you go out birding there in Florida, and there's the reddish egret that's found in Florida. And green heron, little blue heron, American bitter, and a limpkin who was preening. And we were, I was at Corkscrew here, and the limpkin came along, and it just hopped up and started preening. And there were 4 or 5 of us. And my son, who does a lot of traveling with me, he's not a serious birder yet. He couldn't get over it that so many people were excited about it. But the limpkin's always a special treat. And the snowies and great egrets. There's one little blue in there with the roseate spoonbills. And on that rainy day, 4 pelicans. I love this photo. I call it serenity. It's so peaceful. And there's white ibis and down in Florida. And to have a sunset over Flamingo Bay is really special. And my son treated me to a charter boat to Alligator Reef Lighthouse. I wanted to see that. And also we did some fishing. So that's a brown grouper, which we put back everything. And it was just the 2 of us and Captain X. And I will say that I caught that barracuda. I had to use my knees, that upper strength in the arms. A little of that has gone. But I will say it took me 8 minutes, but I reeled it in. And I do believe because I was the senior doctor, Captain X put it on his website, this photo. And this is the great white heron, all right, the white morph of the great blue heron, larger and on top of the mangroves. Captain X treated me. He said he would turn off the boat. He was a bird watcher, by the way, and he took me and David and I into the mangroves. There's a magnificent frigate bird with 2 females. All right, there he is in flight. And there are 3 brown pelican, young brown pelicans, and there's a double-crested cormorant in the middle of it. And it's not on a nest. I have no idea whether the pelicans, what they were doing, but they were flapping their wings at it. And the cormorant wasn't trying to get away, that's for sure. And brown pelican in its beautiful breeding plumage. Well, I had to take you just briefly out to the West Coast, but I did go out there one winter and actually over Thanksgiving, I believe it was. And I am high on a cliff on the way down to Monterey. And I'm looking down at the harbor seals that are only found in San Francisco. And what happened, I almost went off of the boat. I almost went down the cliff. I see 32 brown pelicans when I put my head up from looking the seals. And the young ones looked like they were dancing in the air. And each one of the young birds was with an adult. It was amazing. There were 32 of them. And I've never seen that before. So I thought that I would put that in. And a tribute to my husband, who really went down every dirt road or any place that I really wanted to explore. He really got into it. He was my kindred spirit, that's for sure. And a wonderful photographer and a wonderful person. And thanks, Dan, for being in my fan club. And there I am in Maine with my little bird book and water, binoculars and a hat, and near the water. Wow, that's heaven there. And David and I at the southernmost point of the Florida Keys. And here's looking at you, everyone. And I thank Wyncote for inviting me. Kevin, you there?
I'm here. I'm just ending things on my end. I'll close out your screen share here.
Okay. I hope we have some smiling faces.
There we go.
All right. Oh my goodness. Hi, everybody. There's I see people, some people clapping. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it was a beautiful presentation. I missed the beginning, but I was having technical difficulties, so thank you.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, I think it was recorded. I see some familiar.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed the adventure. The discipline was, I've done so much birding in the last 45 years along the coast. The discipline was how many places to take you. Lady, you remember that day at Barnegat? Oh.
Yes, I do. Yes, indeed.
Did it come back to you in that mist and how all the birds were there just when the mist lifted?
Yeah.
But any questions for everybody and for anybody or any comments?
Looking at the chat here, and it's nothing but thank you. Wonderful. This is terrific. We love you, Ruth. I don't see any questions per
Fantastic.
se.
I
I
had a
think
quick
everyone's
question.
just as perplexed, just amazed as me at like how many places you've been and how much you remember. And your stories are like that for each picture. And I can only ever hope to get to as many places and see as many birds as you, Ruth.
Good luck,
As always,
Kev.
I'm inspired.
Thank you so much, Kev. You really very kind to say your kind words. I think somebody said they had a question.
Yeah, I had a question. Where were the places you mentioned good for ducks in the winter birding? I think you said Shark something.
Shark River and all the places that I mentioned, Shark River and all of the lakes that are there. There are 4 lakes, Lake Como, Spring Lake, and the promenade at Spring Lake. And I'll go all the way start at Old Sam's Pond, which is in
Okay.
Pleasant to Manasquan Inlet. All right, and don't forget about Pennypack Trust, the Wissahickon, Militia Hill, Peace Valley, Green Lane, Houston Meadow, Dixon Meadow. I'm missing something. I know I am. Oh, and Hawk Mountain. All of those places. I try to get to, as I said, I've already been up Peace Valley and Green Lane and down to Chincoteague. I try to get as many places as I can. And every place surprises you because you never know. Like, for instance, the Salem Wildlife Management Area, I wanted to mention that. If you want to see a sandhill crane, David Sibley calls it the lesser crane, all right? Because it's cinnamon in color and it's smaller than the sandhill crane you will find in Florida. And they have an east-west, they go east-west migration, not north-south. So, but Salem Wildlife Management Area and Cumberland County and Salem County, they're also wonderful places to bird without even going down Cape May. You can have as many species. So I meant to mention those places too. But if you want to see a sandhill crane in the area, they actually are breeding there. I've seen the courtship of the male and Salem Wildlife Management Area. You can Google all this. Any other questions?
We have sandhill cranes in this area for 2-3 months in the winter. Pine Run Reservoir. I don't know if anybody's seen them, but they just came back about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's wonderful. See, Skip Conan, who was he was once curator at the Philadelphia Zoo. He's the one that discovered them on Dutch Mountain in Pennsylvania. So now they're breeding there. That is amazing to have the sandhill cranes. Really, that is really nice in Pine Run. I know that area.
Also, I have seen sandhill cranes in Syracuse, New York, also by Montezuma National Wildlife Refuge in the winter also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And also there, I have seen some by Raritan, New Jersey also. Like there were reports of 2 sandhill cranes reported in New Jersey also. Like that.
Right, exactly. They've been seen there because they're breeding in Pennsylvania, and I know the Hawk Watch has them. The Hawk Watch down Cape May has reported them at different times. You can see it's the birding is it's so rewarding, and you don't even have to have the rare bird every time to go out. I don't have any anticipation of like what I might, I'll see whatever I see. There's only one time I ever heard the fox sparrow, which is a sparrow that's coming down now in our yards and in our parks, our woodlands. And I only heard the fox sparrow sing twice. And both times it was at Tinicum. Now, if anybody can figure that out, I have no idea. I've seen fox sparrow many times in other places in my yard, but it only 2 different times at Tinicum, which is amazing. That's the only time that I've heard it sing. But moments like that are always a treat. And it's just wonderful to go out and to enjoy it and to visit different places. But is there any other questions or comments?
I saw one in the chat box. They were asking, where were you that you saw the 150 eagles?
I was at Conowingo Dam, and it was 135 eagles, I think I said. But 135 we had that day. It was a December trip, and if I remember, it was December 14th, and about five years ago. But you can see them. You can see golden eagle. You can see gulls there. You can see some of the ducks that I showed you. And if you go over Perryville, Perryville has a park. And you can go over Perryville, which is only like a 20-minute ride after you go to Conowingo Dam. And you can have most of the ducks that I showed you in the show tonight, up close and personal. Perryville Park is a beautiful place in the wintertime. You know, that's if you want to bundle up and everything, because it's right where the Chesapeake begins. It's right where the Susquehanna River ends and the Chesapeake begins.
Well, I was going to say, Ruth, thanks so much. You are an inspiration. Energizing. We love the birds and we love you. Thank you so much.
Love you,
Ruth,
Janet.
I have a question.
Yes.
This recording, right, which is done for this meeting today, like great pictures by the way, Ruth, and great info also. Thank you very much for that. So
Thank
when do we
you.
get? Yeah. The question is, how do we get the recording, and when do we get it?
That's up to Kevin and Lee to say. Thank you for the question.
Lee?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
When,
the recordings will be posted on our website for the program. So, typically we take them, and there are often participants that don't get a chance to actually attend. So that's where we'll post the recording.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I have two more questions here. What kind of camera?
well, the camera, I had the Parola, the Northern Parola Warbler. I took that like 35 years ago, just with a point and shoot. But most of the photos are done with a 500 lens. It's like half the size of my body, and I wear it on a harness. So, that's what most of the photos that I had in the show tonight. It's a Sigma lens with a Canon camera.
And then one more question and one more compliment to finish us out here. Jennifer Sherwood asks, are there any snowy owls in PA or in New Jersey this winter?
Not that I know of yet. I really haven't heard. As I said, I was away for almost 2 weeks, and I haven't heard yet. You can probably Google, like eBird or reports, or I don't know if the DVOC still has, but DVOC has a report of what's been seen in areas. I'm a member of DVOC, used to be able to call in and they would let you know what's around, but I haven't heard of any. It's a good year for them to come down because
Actually, Ruth, I have seen and photographed snowy owls in New Jersey by Island Beach State Park.
all right,
Yeah.
see Island Beach State Park, and you might have some snow bunnies on the beach when you go there. And that's where I saw whales when I was after a snowy a few years ago. A mink, and there were 3 humpback whales off of Island Beach State Park.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the snowy owls. There has been one I know at Island Beach State Park for a few weeks. They're not really giving details about exactly where to find it. Unfortunately, a lot of folks harass these owls with, especially when they try to get good photographs. So you really got to be, use some bird etiquette, when you're out looking for the snowy owls and other birds in particular, so that we don't love them to death, if you know what I mean.
Lee, I'm so glad you said that, because the snowy owl picture that I showed you tonight, I took that from my car, from the road. All right, because even though I have the long lens, I have actually it's a gift of being, I don't have to get as close. But Lee, eventually they were driven off because the photographers got out of their cars, walked right up and put the cameras right in their faces. So I'm so glad you said that, because camera, you really should stay on the trails when you do that and don't be intrusive. Like, I never take a picture of any of the birds nesting in my yard. I mean, I treat them like my guests all year round, whatever, but they're my guests all year. But the nesters, I wouldn't think of going into their nest and intruding. The only way I found the nest is if I was doing some pruning in October after its nesting period. So, and I'm really glad that you did that point. And that's probably why they're not. At Middle Creek, Dale Twining, I'll never forget it, because we went up one trail at Middle Creek, off the trail near the visitor center. We went up the trail and he said, now Ruth, just look around and tell me what you see. All right. There were 13 short-eared owls in one tree. I mean, I almost fainted. All right. Do you know, eventually they were driven off, just like at Peace Valley, the short-eared owls, until they don't tell people where they are. Because whether you have a camera or not, because owls can really, their eyes, their sights are good, but boy, do they hear. I mean, they can hear during the night a rodent over leaves or over the ground. So that's a good point.
Also, Ruth, in Sandy Hook, right? Like a month ago, also there has been a reports of a wood stork and a white-tailed kite also.
A wood stork?
Yeah.
Where was that reported?
Sandy Hook. I actually took the pictures of it also.
Oh boy, that's
Not one, but two of them actually.
two of them. Well, that's really amazing. I know one day when I was down Bombay Hook, this is years ago, Massachusetts Audubon was also down there doing a trip. And I was scanning through snow geese, and sure enough, there were two sandhill cranes in there. And the ranger was kind enough. I asked him if he'd go around, because Massachusetts Audubon came a long way, and I knew that they didn't say it because they were there before us and they didn't say anything. You should have seen how fast they went through the refuge and came around for those sandhill cranes. But that's amazing. I mean, and these birds are being driven off. I mean, we have a lot more wind with any storms, no matter what time of the year we're having wind. One of the reasons that our passerines fly at night is because that's when the winds are usually calmer, but climate change is changing that. So just imagine if you're that bird and that's what you're driven by migration. You're down in the Costa Rica and you have plenty of food and everything, and yet all your instincts say to you to go north, even though you have plenty of food or right to breed, and that's what they have to do. And they're really facing a lot of obstacles with the climate change and the storms, but wind is definitely one of the I think one of the biggest obstacles for them. And
Thank you, Ruth.
thank you for your kind thoughts. And Jennifer Sherwood, how was the Christmas count? Were you there? She might not be there now. Well, thank you, everyone. It's really, I had such fun putting this together, and it's so nice that the feedback is wonderful. And I can say happy birding to everyone, and just bundle up if you're going out. The Barnegat light, the day that I showed you that the four of us were there, that we didn't have hats on and gloves, shows you it was a little bit mild for that, because that can be one of the coldest places, going birding. And don't forget about the Philadelphia Zoo. I mean, there's a lot of migratory birds, and in that lake that they have, I've seen lots of migrants there. Well, I was taking my children when they were younger, always did a little birding there.
I did not know that, Ruth.
Huh?
I didn't know that. I have a zoo membership, so I know where I'll be this spring.
Well, in fact, I used to do presentations down at the zoo. All right. And that's why, and they started a bird list. All right. They keep a running list because a lot of birds come.
What's the matter?
All right.
Well, I'll pick you up on my way then.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I love to talk about birds and everything, and traveling, and it's wonderful. Yeah, and just been fortunate to have so many years of doing it, and looking forward to some more. And I wish you all be safe, be well, travel out, be careful, and happy birding, and go to one of the places that I suggested. There's lots in our area, or venture out for an overnight or a nice good day at Sandy Hook. Oh, Sandy Hook, New Jersey, out the gateway, the seashore, the beach there. There's wonderful, wonderful. I did my first trip to Sandy Hook with Windcoat a long time ago, Lee, and I think it was Martin Seltzer Scope that fell that day, the first time.
That's great. Ruth, thank you. Ruth, thank you for another wonderful presentation. Kevin, all the hard work you do as our program chair. Appreciate that as well, with a lineup of great programs. I know our next program is the third Friday in February, and I believe that's about wood thrush in the pennypack, if I'm not correct. Which is really good from professor at Penn State that has done studies there. And
actually, Lee, I think it's Executive Director Chris Mendel talking about bird habitat and restoration.
Oh, that is great. So
Yeah.
you know, I don't tell Chris I screwed up who's doing the presentation. So at any rate, you know, that'll be wonderful in terms of the work that's going on there. And I thank for the great turnout this evening. Again, sign up for the updates. You'll learn more about our bird walks. We are planning a trip to Middle Creek, but we don't know whether it'll be the end of February or the beginning of March. And the Atlantic Audubon Society president has been in touch. We're talking about doing a joint coastal trip at the beginning of March. So where that will be, it could be Shark River. But we'll see where we'll end up going. And I do believe there's going to be another trip to Barnegat Light in early March, but stay tuned. They're not.
Thank you, everybody.
Lee, you're on mute.
Goodbye. Stay well. Be safe. Good night.
You. Bye well. Stay well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.